Good evening, folks. This is Deb Delapiano, and this is your short take. You know, tonight, tonight, we're going to just take 10 minutes to talk about the other guys, the GOP. We're going to talk about how the Republican Party has been spending all of its time since 2020 trying to find some corruption and dirt on the Biden family, not just on Joe Biden. And has instead spent their time uncovering corruption on their own side. So I just want to talk a little bit about character and why the Republican Party is not the party you want leading your nation. So as we all know, the E. Jean Carroll defamation and rape case against Donald Trump has concluded, and the illustrious ex-president of the free world is now formally considered a sexual predator. They found him guilty of battery of E. Jean Carroll and defamation and ordered him to pay $5 million. This is just one case against this man, okay? There are at least 17 and maybe as many as 26 other women who are alleging that Donald Trump committed the same crime against them. And this case, the conclusion of this case, gives them a pathway forward. So you may see more here. But let's also remember the fact that he is a man who has already been found, his organization, the Trump organization, has been found guilty of committing crimes, business crimes in the state of New York. Letitia James is still filing cases against him. He is potentially about to be charged in the state of Georgia for the fake elector scheme. Fani Willis there has warned law enforcement that these indictments could be coming down sometime between July and September of this year. And she expects people in the state of Georgia to react quite out of the legal frame. They may be so upset. And it may not just be Donald Trump. It could be, the lovely Lindsey Graham, and probably more than likely Rudy Giuliani. Donald Trump is also under investigation by the Department of Justice for stealing documents from the White House. Some of those documents are highly classified. He is under investigation for inciting an insurrection in Washington, D.C. to try to overthrow a legitimate election to retain power. These are just a few of the things that the front runner for the presidency in 2024 is facing. And it doesn't stop here. There are other things too. The case in Manhattan with Alvin Bragg, that's coming back again later this year. He'll be on trial for that. And he's not the only one. So George Santos, the representative from New York, who has gone under several names and has lied about many things, including his entire background. No one really knows if his name is George Santos or Anthony DeVolder. No one really knows much of anything about him because he has so many stories. He's like that kid from the cartoon that can't stop lying. He was charged federally today. He surrendered to authorities with 7 counts of wire fraud, 3 counts of money laundering, 2 counts of making false statements to the House of Representatives, and 1 count of theft of public funds. The man filed for unemployment benefits related to COVID-19. Okay? He gave false statements to the House on their documents about his finances. Now, allegedly, they have had an FBI agent working undercover in his office. These kinds of cases, usually, when they bring these cases, they have a paper trail that's long. So we have a House of Representatives, a representative who could be facing time in prison. Some people say 20 years, some people say 2 to 3 years. To me, it doesn't matter how much time it is. A criminal is a criminal. Criminals do not belong serving in government, okay? We don't allow criminals to vote. Why should we allow criminals to serve the public? He hasn't paid his debt to society yet. In fact, he's refusing to resign, even though people are calling for him to resign, and he's running for re-election. So let's take a look at this clown here. I'm not going to put him up on the screen. I'm just going to talk to you about him. Let's talk about this guy here. We have a legislator from Texas. He's a state rep. His name is Brian Slayton. He resigned on Monday because it was found that he had, this is a 16-page report now that was filed on him by after an investigation, okay? This guy was found to have given a 19-year-old member of his staff alcohol and had an illicit sexual affair with her. This is a man who has been one of the loudest voices talking about the groomers in the LGBTQ and transgender community. He is a man who has filed far-right legislation, including, that Texas should secede from the union. But for a man to have done that kind of thing with a 19-year-old girl and claim that the LGBTQ community has no morals and are groomers of children, filing bills to keep people from being able to take their children to drag shows, it's absurd. I mean, we are literally talking about a party that can't stop being criminals. Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of the state of Texas, is under investigation. The Department of Justice just took over that investigation, which has been floating around since 2020, when several of his staffers came forward saying that he was involved in bribery from a donor. And he also, they accused him of abusing his office, and he took bribes to benefit a political donor who also employed a woman with whom Paxton was alleged to have had an extramarital affair. Now, these people came forward as whistleblowers. He fired them all. And just a couple months ago, he was forced to apologize to them and pay $3.3 million in taxpayer money under the whistleblower law to these people. And he still is denying that he did anything wrong. But because his office could be seen to have conflict of interest in investigating this, the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. has taken over this investigation. It seems to me that the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. is spending an awful lot of time investigating Republicans. And, of course, the Republicans are out there claiming witch hunt. Look at folks, you know something? With this smoke, there's fire. None of this is a witch hunt. Donald Trump's claiming it's a witch hunt. He claimed Letitia James's case was a witch hunt. He's the whiniest, most sniveling victim I've ever seen in my life. They're all a bunch of sniveling little liars, okay? George Santos is vowing to clear his name. Well, I hate to tell you this, George, but they got a paper trail on this baby. You ain't clearing nothing. I'm asking the American people, and I'm seriously asking the GOP voters, these really the kind of people you think should be running the country? Are you seriously casting aspersions on certain groups of people who are on the left while you condone, support, and vote for criminals on your side of the aisle? You ought to be ashamed of yourselves, quite frankly. These are not the kind of people that should be running the country. They are not the kind of people that should be elected to public office where they have to, maintain the public trust. I don't know how anybody can possibly back any of these people. I don't know how Paxton, who has been accused of this for several years now, manages to win re-election, except it's more of a reflection on the voters than anything else. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have our problems on the other side. We've got one named Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and tomorrow I'll be making a video about him because actually, in truth, he's not a Democrat either. He's a lying sack of shit, too. I'll talk to you all later.